Welcome to Swartz Talking Sports. I'm your host, Les Swartz. We have got a fantastic show for you tonight. We've got former Major League Baseball great Vince Coleman in the house. Now, before we start, please hit that subscribe button. Love to hear your comments. Would love your support. We can be heard on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and also Swartz Talking Swartz on TikTok and Instagram. So this is an exciting show. We've got a live chat tonight. We've got an amazing guest, so let's bring him on. Former Major League Baseball great Vince Coleman.
First, I would like to give praise and thanks to our Father in heaven and through his Son, Jesus Christ, for giving me the opportunity to play sports. And I thank you very much, and I'm blessed and honored to be here on your show tonight.
Thank you, Vince. Greatly appreciated. And we've got a lot to cover, and I know your time is precious, and we really do appreciate it. Now, before we even jump into your amazing baseball career, maybe a lot of people don't know, but you're a tremendous football player in college at Florida A&M University.
Well, I would like to say it all started out because I was a walk-on, and my mother made sure that I was going to go to college, and what college I had chosen didn't choose me. So when I filled out summer school applications, the first summer school that accepted me was going to be either Florida A&M or Bethune-Cookman or Florida State. Mm-hmm. And since Florida A&M reached out first, and I knew I wanted to try out for the football team first because coming from Jacksonville was a football state, and everybody loved football there, and that's the macho sport. It wasn't baseball. It was all football was my first love. And by me going out for graduating on a Thursday and signing up in summer school right that Monday, I started hanging out with all the football players, and we went over to Florida State, and we put on Army boots, and they run 72 flights of stairs. And it was grueling, 90-degree weather, 90% humidity. But I tell you what, it builds stamina, endurance, power, and speed without me knowing that speed will come into play playing baseball. But I was just trying to get my legs strong. But the first day of camp, I ran 4.29, 40-yard dash, and I caught their attention right away. And so they, who's that little freshman right there that running 4.2? What position you play? And I was like, I'm a punter. I'm a place kicker.
Hold on. I guarantee you there's no punter or place kicker in the history of football that has run a 4.2.
I found that to be true later on, but because my cousin was a punter for the Minnesota Vikings at the time, and I thought it'd been great to have two African-American punters in the NFL, and that was my dream. So I went on to college and had a great career there as a punter and place kicker. And in 1980, I beat the University of Miami with a 34-yard field goal with a minute left to go in the game. And that, so when I go back home to Florida and when I go home to Jacksonville or Tampa or Miami, I'm known as the football player, not a baseball player.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Vince, you broke my heart because in 78, you guys played in the 1AA championship. You played UMass. You beat us 35-28. You had, Rudy Hubbard, legendary coach, Ike Williams, a tremendous running back, yourself. Yeah. Great. And to this day, that is, I believe, the last HBCU school to win any championship at that level.
You're absolutely correct. That'll go down in history as the only HBCU school would ever win a Division I AA championship. And I'm so proud to have been on that team. It was 1978, and Albert Chester was the quarterback. But we had tremendous players, had a great coach, great team. The year prior to that, they had went 11-0, but that divisional championship wasn't out there during that time. We had a tremendous team, but only game we lost that year, we went 12-1. We lost to Tennessee State. And who am I reminded by that all the time is the great Richard Dent.
I was going to say Richard Dent, yeah, Tennessee State. I'm wondering, did Ed Too Tall Jones go to Tennessee State as well?
Yes, he would. And yes, he did. Yes.
I know my stuff.
Yes,
so we're at Florida A&M. Well, so we're at A&M, and now how do we transition into your baseball career as a professional from A&M?
Well, I was doing the spring practice, and I could see them down there practicing baseball. And one day I went up to my coach and I said, "Well, coach, can I go out and try it out for the baseball team?" He said, "Well, you can't play baseball." I said, "Well, give me 3 or 4 days, and if I don't make the team down there, then I'll come back to spring practice." And so, because I'm on a football scholarship. Mm-hmm. And so I go down there, and I was I impressed the coaches because we scrimmage every day. So I laid down a bunt or two. I stole second, stole third, and I made a couple plays, and I was a center fielder. And through the course of the year went on and on. But what caught the attention from all the scouts was I was playing with Hank Aaron's son. Hank Aaron's son and Bill Lucas. Bill Lucas was the first black general manager of the Braves that put together the team with Bob Horner and a lot of other guys that came up through the Braves organization. But all the scouts would come around and see those guys were seniors, and so they would come around and see me. And one game, I stole 7 bases in one game against Alabama State, and that's what caught the attention for the scouts right then and there.
That's a lot of stolen bases in one game. Now, you got drafted. I know you had a quick cup of coffee with the Redskins. That's a quick little interesting story, how you came in for, a few days?
Yes, well, in 81, 82, my senior year, I go to mini camp, and I'm there with the Smurfs, Joe Theismann, Art Monk, Charlie Brown. And so I'm there every day in camp. But during the time the punters was on the field, we was in the film room, and he wanted me to play wide receiver. Bobby Beathard would not allow me to go out and punt. He said, instead of you kicking the ball, I want you to catch this ball and run this ball. You're running 4.29, 40-yard dashes. So I said, well, Bobby, I would love to do that, but just give me the opportunity to punt. He said, no, there's no way I'm going to let you punt. And I said, well, Bobby, after 3 or 4 days, I called my mom, I twist my ankle, and she said, well, maybe that's a blessing in disguise, because the year before I was drafted by the Phillies in the 20th round, but I decided to stay in school because I wanted to play football, and I also wanted to finish up on my degree. And so college life is the best life. So I didn't want to leave school early, so I stayed in school, but I knew that right after minicamp was in May, June draft was coming up. And I said, well, I left, and he begged me to stay. I shouldn't say he begged me to stay. He wanted me to sign a $10,000 free agent contract to guarantee that I would come back. Okay. And so I said, well, Bobby, I'm not going to sign it. I'm going to roll the dice and see where I fall into the draft. Now, I had led the nation in stolen bases 2 straight years at Florida A&M. 65 for 65 my junior year, and I was 65 for 66 my senior year. So I thought that I would go in the first round. There's no doubt in my mind. I bet at like 380. But here I am the first day of the draft, and I'm waiting by the phone, sitting there all day long, and it's like, phone never rang the first 2 days. And, now they had the 10th selection, and the Cardinals call. And the scout came to the house, and I said, well, let me ask you a question. How come I went so low? I said, well, your competition, your level that you played against wasn't at USC, Stanford, or Cal State Fullerton, or one of the big-time schools. So that's where we select you at. That's where you fall into our slot there. I say, okay, well, and right then and there, I say, well, I'm going to prove you wrong.
And you did. And you sure did. Unanimous. You were, I believe, unanimous Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, well, that was a blessing in disguise. I mean, I was blessed by being with a lot of great ball players. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was blessed with Ozzie Smith, Terry Pendleton, Tommy Hurd, Jack Clark, and being managed by Whitey Herzog. Mm-hmm. On that team, we had an all-star at every position, and we had Joaquin Andahar, John Tudor as a pitcher, and, we had everybody blueprinted they format after the Cardinals, how they want to go out and display they lineup. You had speed at the top. You didn't have a home run hitter, but one Jack Clark, but we had guys that consistently can handle the bat, that batted 300. And, we played great defense. And that's what we pride ourselves in, that we go out every day and we take infield and we hit the cutoff man, we go to the right bases, and we run the bases very well, So, by going with balls in the dirt, go from first to third, delay steal in second and third, so we kept it excited. Whitey goals was just always make the opposition play a simple game of catch, but now they got to put a time limit on it. Anytime someone have to put a time limit on it, they're going to put pressure on you and they're going to throw it away. And so I was just blessed. But remember now, I didn't start the season in the big leagues that year in 1985. It was 12 games in. And then I can remember like it was just yesterday that I got a phone call from Jim Fugosi. I'm down in Nashville, and we was playing down there. And he said, well, you're going to – it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. He said, like, you going to the big leagues? And I'm like, really? And he said, well, trust me when I say this. This is the advice that Jim Fugosi gave me. He said, once you get to the big leagues, the game is going to slow down for you.
Really?
Now, what he was telling me was that because I had stolen 100 bases in A ball, 145 bases in A ball in Macon, Georgia. Then I was in AAA the year before. I stole another 100 bases, 101 bases. Now he said, Vince, you have the mentality to go and do something special. The game is going to slow. So when I got to the big leagues, what he was saying that the lights are beautiful and bright, they throw strikes, and my only question was that I just started switching at a 22-year-old kid. I started switching. I've been a right-handed hitter my whole life, so now I'm in 22 in the minor leagues with George Kissel, and we had a format. All he wanted to do is play pepper and put the ball in play. If I got on base, I could dominate. You couldn't stop me. You only try to contain me. So Terry Pillington was my roommate when I was in AAA. And once I got there, and I say, TP, if I get on, you know what you're supposed to do, So, and he said, I got you. So the rest is history. My first night in the big leagues, I stole 4 bases. The next night, I stole 3. The first 25 games, I had 20 stolen bases, and I was the spark plug for the Cardinals at that year. And then Whitey Herzog was the guy that really gave me the confidence day in and day out. He always insisted that I take off first and second pitch.
He gave you the green light, didn't he?
Oh, yes. I always had the green light. But, I had so much knowledge and wisdom and encouragement and from all the other players that are around me that loved me, that wanted me to continue to go on and take it every time I could.
And to your point, I mean, the Cardinals were a tremendous machine back in the day. You guys went to the World Series in '85. I think they won it the year before you were drafted. I think in '81 they beat the Brewers. They win in '85, '87, but you had 110 stolen bases your rookie year, which is a record that still stands. 3 consecutive seasons with 100 steals. I mean, you set all these records, and now you look at baseball the way it's played now, Vince, and the stolen base is like a lost art. I know Ronald Acuna kind of brought it back a little bit. He's the first guy to go 40-70, but I don't think you'll ever see anybody reach 100 bases again. I just don't think it's going to happen. The game's changed.
Well, I always thought it was easier to steal third base than second base, based on the fact that once you get to second base, the catcher's setting up in the middle of the plate. I'm the worst thing that as a pitcher, you're guarding against your ERA. So, as the catcher translating the signs back to the pitcher, so now you want to figure out what the signs are, if the one first sign, second sign, third sign, first sign after 2, a first sign after the outs. It's a pump system they may go with. Okay. Now, your job is to pay attention and to receive it and get it, because now the pitcher do not want to, he's guarding against his ERA. So and the pitchers are creatures of habit. Once I critique you and analyze you, you got a flaw, tips and tendencies that I can bury you. I passed all that information down to my teammates. So whenever you saw me stealing third base, it wasn't an accident because I'm stealing on a breaking ball. And I would love to get that opportunity to do that, to teach that to this day and age, because it's a tool, a weapon that I use on a system day in and day out. And it was perfected because we had the confidence and the rights to do so from my manager.
I mean, that's incredible. And like I said, I used to watch you play, and it was amazing. You'd take second, you'd take third in consecutive pitches. It was pretty amazing. I think back then, and you guys had some great speed on that team, right? You had, Willie McGee, and you had Ozzie and Lonnie. But I'd say probably you and Ricky Henderson were the guys that really, exemplified the true base stealer in the 80s, I would think. You in the National and Ricky in the American.
Ricky I was in 1983. I was in Macon, Georgia, and Ricky was my idol. I walk into my locker and I see Ricky. I put a picture of him up on my locker there, and every day I would read the paper to see how many bases he stole tonight, and that was my driving force. He and Tim Raines, and so knowing that they had the fortitude to do that day in and day out by staying in shape, by coming and then when I got a chance to meet Ricky, and I, what are your trade secrets? What are your goals? Come to the ballpark early, stay late, stay around the longest. Those are the guys that, stay in the weight rooms, always got to stretch, get into the ice tub, things of that nature. So, but for me, I was a mischievous kid, so coming up, so I always loved the challenge. I always loved to compete. And I always looked at it as competition day in and day out, that I figured that if I made you nervous, then it would not just benefit me, but it benefit my ball club. And so with that being said, it was a domino effect for the Cardinals because we thrived on speed. We wasn't home run hitters. We try to put pressure on you by going from first, third, taking advantage of the extra bases, going with balls into dirt. And, it kind of gravitated throughout our lineup day in and day out.
Now, we do have some questions. We actually have a lot because I think a lot of people are really excited to talk to you about this. But before we get to that, real quick, you're going to be going to your first World Series. You're in the postseason against the Dodgers, and this was really publicized back in '85. And I really believe that the injury that you suffered, I think, was the sole reason why the Cardinals ultimately didn't win the World Series. I mean, they went 7 games. There were some bad calls, but I think if Vince Coleman is on that team, you guys win that in 5 or 6 games. That's just my opinion. But can you just kind of talk about what actually happened with that? It was just an innocent thing. You got rolled over up. What happened there?
Well, I have to give credit to the Warriors. They played very well. They pitched very well. They had Danny Jackson and Saberhagen. They pitched outstanding. We didn't put the ball in play as much as we should have, but we would like to. We was up 3-1, and then all of a sudden, a tailspin. It was a big play, one play that cost us one inning, or the ball game, basically. The Dinkinger call at first base, So, but yes, I didn't play at all during that World Series, only because of the bad luck. I was on the field at the time. It was pregame, and it started drizzling, and I'm standing at first base. And Terry Pilton and I was together, and we was conversating. And so this big tarpaulin machine is ran by a guy down in the right field corner. For whatever reason, he wanted to bring it out because it was threatening to rain in the forecast, and it started drizzling. So I didn't hear it. I didn't see it. If I saw it, I would have ran away from it. If I hear it, then someone would have warned me. But it kind of like trapped me down and rolled up to my hip, which it cracked my tibia. That it was enough to take me out of that series. So it was an unfortunate accident. But the blessing part about it is that I was able to come back within a month, which was like November, and continue to work out and get my speed back together and come back and have a career.
Incredible. Again, I said, just unfortunate bad luck, but like you said, you definitely bounced back. Welcome back to Swartz Talking Sports. I'm Les Swartz. We're joined right now. This has been exciting for me. Legendary Major Leaguer Vince Coleman, former St. Louis Cardinal. I know, Vince, you did play out your career with a few teams, but you're really known as a Cardinal, right? I mean, that's where the tremendous success came from. Now, before we go, we're going to touch on the minorities in baseball, because I know you definitely wanted to talk about that. You have some opinions on that, and I'd love to hear them. Now, you did play in one more World Series, and that was in '87 with the Cards against the Minnesota Twins. I was not a big Twins fan. Kirby Puckett, great ball player. Just not a. So what happened there? That was another 7-game series, correct?
Yes, another 7-game series that went the distance. We won all the home games. They won all the home games. It's just that they played more home games than us. But how could I put into words the appreciation I have for the St. Louis Cardinal fans? Whenever you walked into that ballpark, you saw the sea of red and red and white. It was very, very intriguing to go there, to know that, I played that for, 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
8 years. And it was the greatest place to be. I'm honored to be into the Hall of Fame there. It's the greatest place to have played baseball. Great organization, great city. Once you wore that uniform, you feel like royalty.
Well, I just want to say it was an amazing career that you had in baseball, but specifically for the Cardinals, like I said, I used to watch you play. No one had a better first step. I love Ricky, but no one had a better first step than Vince Coleman. That's just my opinion. Now, I know we want to touch on minorities in baseball, and it's always been a big. They've had certain people looking at this. There's been matrices on this, and in doing the research on this, in 2023. 6.2% of all major league rosters were made up of African-American, basically, born players here in the United States. But when you played in in the 80s, in the mid 70s to the 80s, it was nearly 20%. It was about 18.5%. Yeah. What do you attribute to that to being, as far as African-Americans born here that just don't play baseball, or why is it so low comparatively to what it was 35, 40 years ago?
Coming up as a kid, you always go to the ballpark, you go to the YMCA, or you go to the local parks, and you had organization, Little League, recreation teams, that had all these leagues together, no matter what city you was in, Atlanta, South Carolina, Tampa, but now you go to these certain cities, the same parks, in Jacksonville, you go to Chicago, you go to Minnesota, St. Louis, to Tampa, San Diego. I mean, so you go to those YMCAs and baseball is not even offered. There's not even an option there. They are offering football and they are offering basketball. So a lot of the guys these days are looking for the instant success. Mm-hmm. And I think that back in the day, you had a grandfather, you had an uncle, or you had your dad, someone was pushing baseball where you go out in the yard every day and you play with the wiffle ball, then you play strikeout, and that's something that you do consistently all day long. But those are not some of the traits that the little kids now revert to. They, like I say, they want the instant success. They play football and they play basketball. And I think that, the travel ball, the club ball has really hurt because now that's an expensive sport when you play travel ball and club ball. I had a daughter that plays volleyball. She plays soccer and she play all this, in track, you play for the hotel, the flights and the per diem for food. That's in $5,000 just to do that. And too many low-income minorities cannot afford that, so it kind of like hurt them that they don't have the resources to participate at a lower level, a level of baseball where that they are not in that community or in that environment. So it's and what has happened also is that every major league team now has these academies over in Dominican. Mm-hmm. Every team in some big market like the Yankees may have 2 academies over in Dominican, and they can recruit these players and sign them up when they're 16 years old. And, you give them an opportunity. They do an outstanding job by housing them, take care of them, and then they give them a great check. And it's enough to sustain them for a lifetime. But they give them the opportunity for 2 or 3 years. And then when they feel that they're adequate enough to bring their talents or skill set over to the States, the ones that are good enough to come, then they do that. But, it's just unfortunate that we don't have that vehicle over here to have minorities that in a low income to have the resources to play baseball, a consistent, even to be introduced to it.
And interesting that you brought that up. If you look at the actual statistics right now in 2023, 35% of all major league rosters are made up of, Latino and Hispanic players, which obviously encompasses, Dominican Republic born players. Back in the day in the 70s, it was around 7%, right? And now you've got a lot of Asian born players coming in. Back then, you didn't have ball players from Korea or Japan coming in. Right now, you've got a guy in the American League who's favored to win the MVP 2 years in a row, Shohei Ohtani. And you never would have seen that in the 70s or early 80s, correct?
Right. Well, the game has changed where they open it up to a wide, broader things where that, no matter where you are or where you're from, you have the opportunity to come over and play. It was very limited back in the day. And, for the fact that, back in the early 80s, you didn't have the academies that was over in the Dominican. So they was always coming over here and given the opportunity to play. But their skill set probably didn't match up to where we were at that time, so it was very limited and the skill set wasn't there. But, right now, the game has changed. It's gotten better. I can say that for sure that it does, make a great deal of opportunities for the Dominican players because they start at a young age and getting major league coaching and big top-notch guys over there, scouts to go over there to give them an opportunity to play and even come over here and have that competitive edge.
But let me ask you this, because growing up, we're about the same age. I'm not going to say we're still very young, right?
Very young. Yeah.
Very young. One of us is faster than the other, and it's
I look young.
You do, and one of us is faster than the other, and it's not me. Even if you gave me a 50-yard head start, I think I'd pull a hamstring on the way to the finish line. But when you were growing up, kind of like me, nothing was specialized, right? We played all sports. I mean, right. Coming from Boston, in the wintertime, we played hockey, we played basketball, we played football and baseball. Could it potentially be that everything's been so specialized now where you're penciled into one sport from the time you're 10 or 11. That's your potential. And you're playing in basketball. It's AAU, it's travel. And that's all you're doing 12 months a year. You think that might have something to do with it?
I think that, it kind of like does the kids a disservice because you lock them in and they don't really get the chance to use all their fast twitch muscles to utilize them from one sport to another. It pigeonholes them, and you don't want to be pigeonholed. My daughter ran track. She played basketball and she played soccer, and then she played softball. In high school, she played 3 sports. And the reason why she stopped running track for a little while during the summer was because they told her she had to go with the track team opposed to playing her sport, which she wanted to do, playing soccer, And so it was like, as a parent, what's great and what's good. And some parents are bought into the system where they feel that they have to spend all their time or their money. This is the end all be all, the vehicle to make it to the major leagues or make it to the college. And so they buy into that system with the club ball, travel ball, is that if you don't play for me, then you can't play for the school, so it's a whole lot of particulars that goes along with that. And it's a lot of peer pressure, actually, because, like you say, back in the day, they didn't have travel ball or club ball. We played all sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball in high school. And then I went on to college and played both sports, and that was one of the reasons I picked Florida A&M, because they had a great program, but they was going to allow me to play both sports. And, and I was blessed by being there because, in baseball, you had a great coach, great system. Hal McRae was there 4 years prior to Andre Dawson. Then Andre Dawson came. Then I came to pick the team at Florida A&M. And then Marquise Grissom came right after me. So Florida A&M had a great program where you produce 4 Hall of Fame, well, I should say All-Stars, that played in the Major League Baseball. So I'm very proud of that. And one of my biggest accomplishments of when I played and started in the All-Star game in 1987 in Cincinnati, I was in left field and Andre Dawson was in center field. And coming from an HBCU school, Florida A&M, I thought that was a great accomplishment for me. And our coach was there at that game, so Pop Kittles.
The Hawk was a tremendous player. Boy, you want to talk about electric. He could hit for power. He could run. He was a 5-tool. He was a 5-tool player.
Oh, no doubt. Yes. Yes.
Now, regarding minorities in baseball, that's what the players. That's on the players' side. I really want to address the managerial side because, we all knew Frank Robinson was the first manager, of color to manage in major league teams with the Indians. But you only have 2 managers right now that are African American, right? You have Dusty Baker and Dave Roberts, and they're both incredibly successful managers. Baker won it all last year with the Astros. He's been a winner wherever he's gone. Dave Roberts has already won one with the Dodgers. Now, they better win tonight. If they lose tonight, they're out in 3 straight to Arizona. That's going to be a little bit of an upset. But why do you think that maybe more managers are not there? Because they have obviously proven that, they can manage in the big leagues and manage successfully.
I think when you look for a manager, you're looking for leaders of men. And I know that they have done a great job, and that Dusty have done over the years. Like you say, he's been at 4 different organizations and has done very well and made it to the World Series and playoffs throughout his tenure of being a manager. And now you have Dave Roberts have been there the same way, and they're great leaders of men. They have the full respect. They old school. They know that what it takes to become champions. When you come into the preparation is the best form of learning, and how you prepare your team to go, So when you come into the ballpark now, some teams take infield every day. Some guys elect not to. Some guys run the bases doing batting practice. Some guys not to. But I know for a fact that they put emphasis on how to fundamentally run a ball club, what it takes to take advantage of the extra bases, going with balls in the dirt, delay steals, bunting, hitting the ball the other way. So those fundamentals has a big play when it comes down to playoff baseball. You don't want to see the mistakes being made on the bases and because that could cost you a ball game. And I know they put a lot of emphasis on that because they're old school guys. They want you to come early, stay late, and because knowledge builds confidence. Confidence makes you play fast. And when you play fast, you kick ass.
I like it. Can we coin that phrase?
Yes, yes, you can.
Well, now I know you're a speed guy, and your daughter is a chip off the block, right? So Capiolani Coleman, I think I pronounced that correctly.
You're correct. Absolutely correct.
All
I'm
right.
proud of you.
And right behind me, we've got a University of Washington. We got UW
Hey,
number
go,
one. By
go
the way,
Dub.
Washington undefeated, big game against Oregon this
Yeah,
week.
big game
Okay,
this week. Big game this week.
and that's Odunze, the
I'll
wide
be
receiver.
there. I'll be there.
Oh, you're gonna be. Well, you'll have to give us a firsthand report, Vince, because that's a huge game. That's a biggie. But so
Yeah.
now I know she's a freshman this year. So what is she running at Washington? And why did
She's
she
gonna
pick
be running-
Washington?
She's going to be the 400 hurdles, obviously in college. 300 was in. Now, Cappy was a 300 hurdle, 100-meter hurdles. She won the state 2 years in a row here in San Diego.
Okay.
A 300 hurdle, ran 42.50, and then she ran a 13.9 in the 100 meters. But she's been blessed. I mean, with pure just talent, raw talent. I mean, she's a competitor. She's an athlete. She haven't had the great coaching yet. So I'm excited. She hadn't started lifting weights yet until now. She's in college, and now she's going to get coached. The reason why we picked now, University of Washington was nowhere on her radar. I mean, from the beginning of coming into her senior year, she had Oregon, USC, UCLA, Stanford was right there knocking on the doors. But Joshua Anderson is an amazing guy. I mean, it was like he was courting Cappy since she was a sophomore. So I asked, what made him, so intrigued about Cappy. He said, well, he saw when she was a junior, she long jumped 20 feet. And she's not even a long jumper. She just went out to just do it that week for points. That's what caught his undivided attention. He said right away, she's an athlete. He stopped following because Cappy last year was on the nation's #1 high school volleyball team here in the state of San Diego. They went 32-0, only lost one set. Cappy was an outside hitter. She jumps like Jordan. She can jump, she can hit it. And then her freshman year, she was on the basketball team where it was 32-0. She averaged like 25 points. So she is an athlete and very competitive. So he's excited to have her. He's cracking his knuckle. Joshua won 3 NCAA championships while he attended Washington State.
Wow.
So he knows a little bit what he's talking about, when it comes to preparing for the 400 hurdles. So we're excited about it. I'm excited for the one thing I can say about Cappy, my daughter, is that she is one of the hardest workers. If you tell her to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, she'll be there. Never late, never ran away, injuries never really stopped her from doing anything. She doesn't make excuses. She prepares hard. So I'm excited for her. Well,
based on what you've told me today, Vince, I mean, just the work ethic that you have. I mean, with the Army boot thing still's throwing me. Like I'm never going to look at Army boots or work boots again the same after hearing what you're doing. And I'm not going to try to do what you did, but it seems like she's got that same, really hard work ethic that you had that got you to where you are and where you were. Now, what is everybody wants to know now? So obviously, and again, I know your time's limited, and I really do appreciate this. But so, what is Vince Coleman doing now? What are you doing with your life now, Vince?
I'm a full-time dad. Public transportation, taking the kids in school and back and forth. But on my spare time, I head to the golf course. The golf course is my common denominator, where I go out and test my skills day in and day out, and get my competitive juices, where we play 36 holes. And it's not really about the amount of money that you bet. It's just the camaraderie, the bond, and the competitiveness, and the bragging rights, So I play a lot with Gary Templeton, Rupert Jones, Jermaine Dye, David Justice, Marshall Fault, they all live here in San Diego. So it makes up a good group.
Well, you sound like you've had a great life after baseball. You were a tremendous ball player. And again, I thank you so much for taking the time to come on to Sports Talking Sports. It's been a pleasure, an honor. It's been a privilege. It's been awesome. And best of luck to your daughter at UW. I hope she takes it. Hope she rips it up on the track. Hopefully, maybe one of these days I'll see you on the golf course. But have a great weekend. Go Dubs over Oregon this weekend, right?
Thank you very much. I enjoy my time. Thank you for the honor and blessing. Whenever you need me, you know you're just a telephone call away. Don't hesitate to call.
Vince, I really appreciate it. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Sports Talking Sports. I'm Les Swartz. First of all, that was a treat. That was an awesome, awesome time with Vince Coleman. And again, we really, really appreciate him coming on and talking baseball and life and everything. He's been great. So thanks so much, Vince. Well, if everyone's tuned in to see Benny the Book, the King of Carolina, I got to say the King is on vacation. He is in Orlando, Florida, with his lovely wife, and he's playing golf, and I guess he's seeing Cirque du Soleil tonight. So hopefully Benny's having a great time down in Florida. But he did go 2-2 last week in college. Not too bad, but he finally absolutely killed it in the pros. Benny undefeated last week, 4-0. So congratulations, the book is back. It's definitely a roller coaster up and down, right? So, but I have the privilege of doing Benny's picks this week. So I'm going to start with college. Benny's got 4 games that he's going to do, and the first one he's going to do is going to be the Memphis Tigers getting 4.5 at Tulane. Now, Tulane's got a really good team. Pratt's a great quarterback. They were in the Cotton Bowl last year and beat USC, but Benny's thinking Memphis is going to cover that. So Benny's taking Memphis in the 4.5 against Tulane. His second game in college is a Pac-12 battle, the last one between these two teams for a long time, and that's the Oregon State Beavers, 3.5 favorites over UCLA. Now, Oregon State coming off a big win last week, and UCLA also a great win last week, 25-17, knocking off previously undefeated Washington State. Good defense. They really bottled up Cam Ward, who was a Heisman hopeful, and they really did a great job defensively there. So he likes Oregon State, 3.5 favorites over the UCLA Bruins. The third game he likes is that's going to be a toughie because it's the Battle of the Tigers again for LSU. They actually played Missouri last week. The Battle of the Tigers. They're at it again. One of our guests, Bob Harris, his alma mater, the Auburn Tigers, and he's liking Auburn getting 11 against LSU in Baton Rouge. Tigers, great offense. Jaden Daniels, incredible quarterback. They're a top 10 offense and a bottom 100 defense. I can say that about USC as well, but he likes Auburn to cover 11 points in Baton Rouge against the LSU Tigers. And the last game in college, Benny likes Notre Dame. Now, I know Benny's a big Golden Domer. I'm not a big Notre Dame fan. You either love Notre Dame or you hate them. I'm in the hate category, but 2.5 point underdog to USC. Benny's got Notre Dame here. Now, the game is being played in South Bend. SC's coming off a battle with the University of Arizona last week that went to triple overtime. Caleb Williams pretty much sleepwalked through the first half. He really didn't do much, but he came alive in the second half. And to his credit, USC did put on the points in the second half and beat Arizona in triple overtime. Notre Dame, incredibly, they got blasted by Louisville, unranked Louisville. They are now ranked in the top 15, but they were undefeated. They played at Louisville, and I got to say I was surprised by that game. Notre Dame did not control the line of scrimmage. Louisville ran for almost 200 yards and bottled up the Notre Dame running game. Jack Hartman had a tough game. I think he had 3 turnovers, so you're not going to be hearing Hartman for Heisman. That's pretty much gone. So he definitely likes Notre Dame getting 2.5 against USC. So to recap, he likes Memphis, 4.5 against Tulane. He likes Oregon State favored by 3.5 against UCLA. The Auburn Tigers getting 11 at Baton Rouge against the LSU Tigers, and Notre Dame getting 2.5 against a top 5 USC Trojan team. Now we move on to the NFL. Benny was a perfect 4-0 last week. Congratulations, book. Right now, Benny's got the Tennessee Titans. And can I just say, the NFL is unbelievable. I don't know how you pick games. It's up and down every week. You just don't know who's going to win and who's going to lose. But Benny's got the Tennessee Titans getting 4.5 against Baltimore. The Ravens lost last week. Lamar Jackson has really not played fantastic. A couple of subpar games. They've had a lot of injuries, but he likes Tennessee and Derrick Henry to run the ball against the Baltimore Ravens. Cincinnati, maybe they're bouncing back. They were 1-3. Joe Burrow was limping around, bad calf. Was averaging about 4.2 yards per throw, second worst in the entire league. But he kind of lit it up last week against the I forget who they played, but they won big, and he threw for a lot of yards, over 300 yards, and Jamar Chase had 3 touchdown receptions. So it looks like the Burrow to Chase connection is back. Now, they're playing Seattle. I kind of like Seattle in this game, but Benny likes Cincinnati and the 3 points. So he thinks Cincy's going to win it by about 6 or 7. The New York Jets, who were an absolute disaster a few weeks ago, maybe they have a pulse. Zach Wilson finally playing like an NFL quarterback. Still not close to being there, but is looking better and better every week. He actually likes the Jets and 7 points against the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles undefeated right now. Jalen Hurts playing good football. Defensively, they're strong. They have not blown out anybody. They have not looked like they did last year at the end of the year, but they have to beat the Jets by at least double digits, but Benny's betting that the Jets cover this game in 7 points. So he likes the Jets. And the last game on the docket in the NFL for Benny the Book is the Chicago Bears. Who would have thought a couple of weeks ago the Bears were riding as low as you can be? The quarterback wanted out. He was questioning the coaching staff. But all of a sudden, Justin Fields has put up 8 touchdowns, almost 800 yards passing in the last 2 games. He's looked really, really good. And he likes them getting 2.5 at Minnesota. Surprisingly, the Bears are playing so well that Minnesota is even a favorite in this game, but he likes the Bears in 2.5 points. So to recap the NFL, he likes the Tennessee Titans getting 4.5 against the Ravens, Cincinnati to win by more than 3 against Seattle, the New York Jets getting 7 from the Eagles. That's a head scratcher for me. I kind of like the Eagles in that game. And the Chicago Bears getting 2.5 against Minnesota. So Benny will be back with us next Wednesday. Let's see how he does. Good luck to the book and safe travels back from Florida. Again, special thanks to Vince Coleman. Outstanding. I would love to have Vince back again. He was a great guest. Now, we have a Daily Double this week for you. Not just Vince, but we also have our Big Ten contributor in Big Ohio State guy, season ticket holder for the Buckeyes, and knows a little bit about the NHL as well. And that's Todd Trieger from Columbus, Ohio. We pre-taped a show this week. Excellent interview with Todd. That'll be on the YouTube channel Thursday at 4 o'clock. So be sure to check that out if you're a big college football fan. He came up with some excellent points, especially as it relates to the Big Ten. And he actually had his picks in the NHL and had his Stanley Cup picks. I know them, but you have to tune in to hear them. So again, thanks everybody for watching. As always, hit that subscribe button. We really could use the help. We really need the comments. Let us know how we're doing. Tell us how we can be better. And we'll see you next Wednesday, 7 p.m.